This conference will now be recorded.
Are we ready to go?
Present.
Staff, are we ready to, I heard the recording come on. Are we ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, we got
One.
Facebook working.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. I got an error message. I wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Looks like we're good.
Yeah, Facebook's on. YouTube, not yet. But we got at least one of them, and that usually is the our threshold here. So take it away.
Fair enough. We will go ahead and call the April 21st, 2021 Area Plan Commission public hearing to order. We are, I'd like to remind everybody, please mute your microphones until it's time to speak. Eric, would you please call roll?
Yes, I will. Jackson Bogan.
Present.
Larry Leverance.
Present.
Roland Winger. Roland Winger. Gary Schroeder. Gary Schroeder. Jerry Reynolds.
Present.
Present.
Greg Jones.
Present.
Jake Gray.
Present.
Diana Looper.
Present.
Vicki Pearl.
Present.
Michelle Dennis.
Present.
Tom Murtaugh.
Present.
Perry Brown.
Present.
Tracy Brown.
Present.
Jason Domkowski.
Present.
Lisa Dullum.
Here.
Kathy Parker.
Here.
Carla Snodgrass.
Present.
We have a quorum present. Roland Winger and Gary Schroeder absent.
Actually, Mr. Burns, I believe Roland was having some technical difficulties. I believe he is on
Very
now.
good. Very good. Thank you.
I'm here, Eric. I'm going to drop off the Zoom and dial in.
I heard you. Yep.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Mr.
Thanks.
Wanger. On to the briefing session.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's one request for continuance. That would be case number Z2827. Petitioner Joshua Shives has requested a continuance to the May 19th Area Plan Commission agenda in order to complete a floodplain certification on the site in question. All of the other cases are ready to be heard.
Wonderful, and thank you. On to the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the March 17th, 2021 meeting.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. On to new business.
I move to hear and approve the request to authorize a belated primary approval extension for Rainy Brook subdivision Part 2, Section 2, S 3269.
I second.
Petitioner?
What? You want me to do the staff report?
Yes, actually, excuse me. I'm sorry, Don. You're always so good and thorough. I figured, yes, why don't we head with that one?
Well, we can skip it if you want, but no.
No, sir.
All
My
right,
apologies.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Rainy Brook is a subdivision, one of our older subdivisions, located south of town on County Road 500 South, just west of 231. You can see on our location map there the highlighted area that everything's all those roads and everything that have been in there for a long time. This particular phase was originally approved February 19, 2003. The preliminary plat had 67 lots on it. It was about 35 acres. And they've It got underway pretty steadily. They recorded the first plat in 2004. It was about half the lots. They came in at about 18 or 19 lots in 2013. But now they've still got 5.38 acres and 13 lots of the original preliminary plat to finish up. We don't have any real reason to not recommend approval of this request to authorize a belated primary approval based on any of our ordinance changes. There haven't been any ordinance changes that would affect this. So staff does recommend approval to authorize the filing of a belated 2-year primary approval extension request. If it's approved, then their actual request will go before or be placed on the executive committee agenda for May 5th.
Thank you, Don. Now we will ask if the petitioner has anything they would like to comment on.
This is Tim Ballensiefer with T-Bird Design, representing the petitioner. We don't have any additional comments and just request approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ballensiefer. Are there any questions from the commission members? Is there anyone wishing to speak either in favor or opposed to this petition? We will give it 30 seconds. Ryan, if you could let me know if at that time we haven't heard anything, we'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Okay, sure.
While we're waiting on that reminder, the ballot is in the email from Tuesday, 4/20 at 10:27 a.m. from Diana Trader, and we are voting on Rainy Brook Subdivision Part 2, Section 2, S3269.
Yeah, Larry just told me someone's upstairs to speak against the R2 rezone, which is the Tippecanoe 2 development. Just so you know, I'm presenting.
No public comment on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Burns, would you please?
Yes, I will. Would you please signify your vote by saying approve or deny? Jackson Bogan,
Approve.
Larry Leverins,
Approve.
Roland Winger, Jerry Reynolds,
Approved.
Greg Jones,
Approved.
Jake Gray,
Approved.
Diana Looper,
Approve.
Vicky Pearl,
Approved.
Michelle Dennis,
Approved.
Tom Murtaugh,
Approved.
Perry Brown,
Approved.
Tracy Brown,
Approved.
Jason Domkowski,
Approved.
Lisa Dullum,
Approved.
Kathy Parker,
Approve.
Carlos Snodgrass.
Approve.
Go back to Roland Winger. Is he on, or is anybody able to see him or hear whether he's voting? Roland?
I approve if you can hear me, Eric. I've turned in my ballot.
Gotcha. All good. All right. Unanimous vote in favor.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to the public hearing section, of which I get to read this wonderful statement, which everyone looks forward to. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedures, the commission would like to know the following. When we hear a request to subdivide land, we are only concerned as to whether the actual drawing showing the division into lots meets the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anyone wishing to make comments or provide us with the information regarding any subdivision petitions will be given the opportunity to do so. When we are hearing a request for a change in zoning, we're trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and supported by the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report. Then the person requesting the rezone will be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those of you wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized, and then those of you wish to oppose it will have a turn. This will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes. We ask that you not repeat what others before you have already said. We are a 17-member body, and a majority of 17 is 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 votes against are required for our action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, that case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, or county commissioners, who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must turn off during the meeting. If you need to call, please step out. All exhibits presented to the commission become the property of the commission.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendation on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? That carries.
Okay. I move that Z 2827 Joshua Shively, R1 to A, be continued to the May 19th ABC public hearing agenda at petitioner's request.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Oh, aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. And Mr. Burns, I have a note here to check on the votes, which at this time, I believe we've only had one. In regards to the ballots, excuse me.
I think we were going to pause after or just before case number 5, which was a rezone.
Perfect.
So I think that's about halfway through.
Perfect. On to subdivisions.
All right. I move to hear and vote on S 4988 minor subdivision, a replat of lot 6 in Maple Point subdivision, minor sketch.
I second.
Mr. Lamb?
Okay. If we could get the slide up, maybe. There we go. This is located on the northwest side of Creasy Lane, just south of Main Street or State Road 38. It's in the Menards development area. It's actually part of something called Maple Point Subdivision, even though Maple Point Drive is nowhere near this, or it's to the northwest actually. But this is lot 6. It was recorded some time ago. They're planning to replat this one lot into 2 commercial lots. It's my understanding that there'll be a Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers on, I think, maybe the lot that's right next to Creasy Lane. There's a Jimmy John's to the southwest. There's the Buffalo Wild Wings across the road, and there is Torchwood condominiums. Everything is zoned general business except for that PD zone just to the north along the north boundary. There's nothing on this lot yet except for the buffer yard that was put in some years ago when Menards or when this Maple Point subdivision was originally installed and Menards built. Creasy Lane is classified as an urban primary arterial, but all of the required right-of-way is in place. So there's no need to dedicate any additional right-of-way. These lots actually will be served by the private drive. You can see there that is on the north side of Jimmy John's. There's an easement that covers that as well, and there will also be a 30-foot wide ingress egress between the 2 lots along the new middle lot line there. The utilities are all in. It's city utilities. As far as I know, drainage will just be handled through normal building permit processes. All of our setbacks have been shown correctly. Since the original buffer yard was installed, our standards have changed from 20-foot wide type C to a 30-foot wide type C. But you can see in the aerial or on this plat here that the buffer yard was installed. It'll be up to the city as to whether or not they need to expand that an additional 10 feet. So staff does recommend conditional primary approval contingent on 6 conditions that we've listed in the staff report. They're all pretty standard.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak on this?
Yes, Tim Ballensiefer with T-Bird Design again. Speaking for the petitioner, we agree with all the comments by staff and request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ballensiefer. Do we have any questions from the commission members? Hearing none, Ryan, we'll wait for that citizen comments if there are any citizens wishing to speak either in favor or against this petition, and
Okay,
we'll
stand
wait
by.
as well for that social media.
All right, I'm counting down.
Friendly reminder while we are waiting, don't forget we're going to have a ballot on this. It is in that same email, S4988, Menards Minor Subdivision.
And we have no comment on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Thank you. When I call your name, please signify your vote by saying approve, conditionally approve, or deny. Jackson Bogan,
Conditionally approve.
Larry Leverins,
Conditionally approve.
Roland Winger,
Conditionally approve.
Jerry Reynolds,
Conditionally approved.
Greg Jones,
Conditional approval.
Jake Gray,
Conditionally approved.
Diana Looper,
Conditionally approved.
Vicky Pearl,
Conditionally approved.
Michelle Dennis,
Conditionally approved.
Tom Murtaugh,
Conditionally approved.
Perry Brown,
Conditionally approved.
Lisa Dullum,
Conditionally approve.
Kathy Parker,
Conditionally approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Conditional approval.
It passes by unanimous vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tracy Brown here. I also conditionally approve.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Brown.
my. Thank
Angie.
you, Commissioner. Your name didn't make it to the ballot. I will correct that.
Jason
Jason-
Jankowski here, also conditionally approved.
I apologize.
And for the record, we're very happy to have both of you on this call this evening.
Absolutely. And for the record, it was on the ballot. I just missed it. It was on a split page. Sorry. We're ready to go.
Blame Kathy.
No worries. Here we
blame
go.
me.
On to S4989.
I move to hear and vote on S4989, Malk Major Subdivision, a replat of Lot 1, Major Preliminary.
I second.
Mr. Lamb, once again.
Okay. This another replat. This is was a major subdivision only because originally when they came in the first time because they had maxed out the number of lots that they could grade out of the parent tract. But because it's zoned R1, they could do a major subdivision. Now they have brought back Lot 1 that was recorded before to split it into 2 lots. It's everything's zoned R1 in that area. It's all pretty rural. We're located on the southeast side of Prophets Rock Road, right at 65. You can see there. The lot. Actually, if you just go ahead to the plat, it's a little easier. The next one, the last one, John. There we go. Lot, it's going to be split into Lot 1A and Lot 1B. The original acreage is about 10 acres. They're going to split off a little more than an acre for Lot 1B along Prophets Rock Road there for another house. The right-of-way was all dedicated with the original plat, so we're okay that way. They do have a no vigor access that's platted along there will be carried through on this replat. Everybody's going to access their homes through the private drive that actually goes in for the original house there, Lot 1B, and then Lot 2 that was created previously to the southwest. The soils are all okay for the septic system and well. We do have an approval letter from the county health department for that. Building setbacks. all are correct, and drainage plan is probably not going to be required, as I understand it from the county surveyor's office. So as before, we have the very same essentially conditions of approval for this replat that we had for the original. So we recommend conditional primary approval with 6 conditions.
Thank you, Don. Petitioner's representative?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm Roger Fine with Fisher Engineering in Lafayette, representing the petitioner, Thomas Mauk. We have reviewed and agree with the staff report, and we respectfully request your approval.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fine. Any commission members wishing to speak or have any questions, comments on this? We'll give it that minute for citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that would like to comment on this? Ryan, if you'd let me know. Please.
I will. I'm counting down. Okay, we have no comment on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Yes, sir. Please signify your vote by saying approve, conditionally approve, or deny. Jackson Bogan,
Conditionally approve with bonding.
Larry Leverins,
Conditionally approve with bonding.
Roland Winger,
Conditionally approve with bonding.
Jerry Reynolds,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Greg Jones,
Conditionally approve with bonding.
Jake Gray,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Diana Looper,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Vicky Pearl,
Conditional approval with bonding.
Michelle Dennis,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Tom Murtaugh,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Perry Brown,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Tracy Brown,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Jason Domkowski,
Conditional approval with bonding.
Lisa Dullum,
I didn't see request for bonding in the packet. Did I miss it?
No.
Or is it just in the form when we fill it out?
There are no
It is-
public improvements, so it's actually not necessary.
It is in the form that we had to answer, so I thought we should have it on the voice as well.
Okay, just wanted to understand. Thank you. Then I will conditionally approve with bonding.
Kathy Parker,
Conditionally approved with bonding.
Carla Snodgrass.
Conditional approval with bonding.
A unanimous vote, conditional approval.
Thank you, sir. Rezoning.
Thank you,
next, please.
Commission.
Thank you.
All right, I move to hear and approve Z 2817 Development Company LLC, Precedent Flats Plan Development, R1 to PDRS.
I second.
Ryan?
Okay. All right. Here on the Lafayette's east side off McCarty Lane, we have quite a mix of zoning, mostly non-residential. A lot of general business zoning there to the north, which came in the late 80s with the big massive SIA rezoning. And then of course MR zoning to the further east there for the hospital and kind of adjacent properties. A lot of industrial zoning, and then these remnants of R1 that are largely all farm fields, so that we do have certainly scattering of homes there. You'll see that PDMX zone is a project that failed. It was rezoned just before the Great Recession, I believe, just before I got here. This thing was in process and it ended up being abandoned, so that nothing ever was developed there, but it was rezoned. So that site is essentially derelict unless someone comes in to rezone it again. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. We have a two kind of tract situation here. The much larger tract, if people have been by there, is used for agricultural purposes. Usually a lot of cows grazing up in the front part of that property. And then there is a single family home on the little lot there in the southeast corner. So these are being consolidated for this project. Let's go ahead and go to the next. Yeah, that's a good, yeah, you can go back one more there. Just to let you know, the land to the immediate east, the adjacent property there is in the city's control, and that is a heavily wooded area with a kind of a little wetland there in the middle. This is going to be a future city park, and so the future amenity there for certainly for these residents that will be coming into this project, but also for the larger neighborhood and for the city as well. Let's go on to the next one there. Okay, go to the next slide. I think I had another one that was a little clearer. No, okay, maybe not. All right, back up then. We'll stick with that one. All right, here's your site plan looking north. There's one entrance off of McCarty. McCarty Lane has all the right-of-way it needs. This project is essentially going to do probably some restriping in order to accommodate turning movements in and out of the site. But there is no widening of McCarty that's necessary here. The city is going to, or the development is going to contribute to the city's trail system in this location. The city does have a planned kind of trail along McCarty, replacing the sidewalk segments that are there now with a full 10-foot trail. So this project will deliver their installment of it, as well as leave room for transit opportunities for city bus. City bus obviously does go up and down this road to get to the hospital and back. So given this project being right there, you know, they're going to have an opportunity there for city bus to serve them. Otherwise, the project's 10 buildings, 240 units maximum. Most of the amenity spaces are right up in front, the clubhouse, pool, little dog park there on the west side, wet pond to serve drainage, as well as just, you know, just decorative amenity with a walking trail around it. And, you know, basically kind of a little oasis in the middle of what is presently an ag field. So we are thinking ahead. Let's go ahead and go, well, let's leave it here for now, but on the north part of the project, there's a reservation for a possible driveway connection to the north. The city does have big plans for this area. The infrastructure in terms of street utilities has not been fully fleshed out, but there's a possibility that there may be a public street along that northern boundary somewhere. It's very conceptual, but it could happen. In the event that this development, if say there is a street within striking distance and it's in the owner's interest to connect to it because of the access to South Street and all the commercial opportunities there, this project will have the ability to create a driveway off the property to the north to connect to that possible future street. If it's again, if it's close enough and it's, you know, within their interest. So it's purely an option, but we wanted to sort of set this project up so in the event they'd like to connect, they'd be able to. But otherwise, it's all private drives within this. The project itself is a mix of garage type units and then plenty of surface parking, as you can see there. But in terms of our overall comments, staff definitely favors more of a mix of residential uses in this vicinity. It's obviously heavy non-residential and ag apart from the existing homes along McCarty. But in terms of looking to the future, these sorts of multifamily uses serve multiple purposes. Obviously, certainly workforce housing for the multiple employers in the vicinity, as well as just providing some solid living opportunity alternatives where currently none exist. And so it's an attractive project. We can go to the next slide. You know, pretty high quality development materials and you know, pretty thoughtful site layout. even though it's sort of isolated where it is now, it won't be in the future as the city's street network starts to develop here, and infrastructure network. So this project's sort of kind of one of the first flags being planted in this area, and so it will have connectivity to the trails, to transit, a new city park right on their doorstep. So there's a lot to like for this location. I think we may have another slide. Go to the next one. Yeah, just some more images there of their renderings. Go to the next one. I think that might have been it. Yeah, that was it. So I'll stop there. We are recommending conditional approval. The conditions are fairly standard. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Brian, thank you very much. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak on this?
Yes, thank you. Kevin Riley with attorney with Riley, Teeter and Schreier representing the petitioner. John Hennessy, the petitioner's representative, is also here and available to answer questions that you may have. We reviewed the staff report and agree with the comments. We believe that this is an appropriate zone for this site. I did want to add a couple of pieces. One, this will be a high-end market rate apartment complex is the plan. And also wanted to note that our client previously developed Overture Flats off of Frontage Road in Lafayette. That's been a very successful project, and we believe that this one will be as well. So we agree with the staff report and request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any questions from the commission members? Do we have anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this?
I will scan social media. Presently, no comments.
Thank you very much. Ryan, no questions. Obviously, you did a wonderful job.
Yeah, thank you. No, this is a really great concept, and negotiations were, originally they did not have that house in the corner, that property. And so there was a lot of our negotiations involved buffering the heck out of that person's house from this, because they were planning their dog park right behind them. And so we did encourage them, because this would be a remnant property because of the city park to the east. And so we did recommend that, why don't you see if that property owner is willing to do a deal, and it turned out to work out. So, so it's a good consolidation. And we are done. No comments on social media.
Excellent. With that, we've got a ballot. Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Yes, please indicate your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan.
Approve.
Larry Leverins.
Approve.
Roland Winger.
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds.
Approved.
Greg Jones.
Approve.
Jake Gray.
Approve.
Diana Looper.
Approve.
Vicky Pearl.
Approved.
Michelle Dennis.
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh.
Approve.
Perry Brown.
Approve.
Tracy Brown.
Approve.
Jason Domkowski.
Approve.
Lisa Dahlem.
Approve.
Kathy Parker.
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Approve.
Unanimous approval.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Z2819.
I move to hear and approve Z2819 Lafayette Neighborhood Housing Services Incorporated, Tippecanoe Plan Development, PDMX to PDMX.
I second.
Ryan, I think you're going to get tired tonight. You're up.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, this is our second of two PDs that we're bringing forward. We're moving into closer to the heart of Lafayette now, off of 9th Street. Of course, many folks are probably familiar with the Old Jeff High School that has been through many lives now, and this is its latest incarnation. Very proud of this project. Obviously, early 2000s, it was rezoned. The history's in there, but it was rezoned as part of the Old Jeff neighborhood planning effort. There was a neighborhood-wide rezone that came afterwards, and they did recommend plan development zoning for the repurposing of the school. It had been up to that point used by Ivy Tech, and when they vacated, it was converted to senior apartments. And a very successful project, mixed use option for the ground floor for kind of wide open commercial uses. That's something we fixed with this plan development. We kind of gave it a more prescriptive list of non-residential uses that could occur in the ground floor. But other than that, with this rezone, we're essentially creating a development opportunity on the southern portion of the project. The historic school building is not changing in any way. The same unit count's going to be there. The same square footage available for commercial use will be there. So we can kind of go into the details of the southern spot there. Before I do that, I can mention that the northern part of the project, there are 2 parking lots there. The north lot, there really is nothing going on with this project. If there's any future development that might occur there, it would have to come through as a new plan development. They're obviously going to be using that for parking since they're taking away their southern parking lot, and they do have a disused kind of court space in the middle of that parking lot that they could obviously use for an amenity, private amenity. If they wanted it opened up to the neighborhood, they could do that, but it's purely a private entity. So let's go ahead and go into the proposal. So you can see the building here to the south. It's a 3-story structure. The high school is as well, but the high school floor-to-floor heights are much taller, so the historic school building will still be taller than this one. But this building here is going to be an elevated building, of course, given the clientele that the residents will be living here. And the building itself is sort of relating to the current access points for the old Jeff Center apartment units. Most of the entries and exits come from this southern part of the building. So this building is going to be on the other side of it. So we're sort of firming up this driveway loop. So there's sort of a common drop-off area for both buildings right in the center. And we also if you can go back for a second there, we're formally closing that curb cut onto 9th Street. There's currently some barricades there now. People have seen it. We're going to finally erase that and actually extend the curb, gutter, and sidewalk all along 9th Street so that it's complete. And along with that, we've worked with City Bus on this to create a planned bus pullout off of 9th Street. Obviously, the transit usage at this location is very heavy. A lot of bus routes go up and down 9th Street. And for the comfort of the residents, giving a pullout will allow people getting on and off the bus just that much more time to do so safely. And at the same time, the bus won't be backing up traffic on 9th Street, which the traveling public should appreciate. So vehicular access to the site will continue to be off of 10th Street behind the project. There is, and then of course on the north parking lots, none of that is changing. The current access points from the street network will stay the same. This project is sort of rebuilding part of the southern parking lot in this sort of modest parking area south of the new building with the new curb cut off of Brown Street. A lot of care has been taken to make sure this project fits in architecturally as well as site-wise. There's some beautiful old trees on this block that some folks may know. And a lot of care has been taken in this landscape plan to make sure as we go to construction that those trees are protected during construction because they're an asset to the site, and no one disputes that. So that's a positive. We can go ahead and get into the architecture sheets now. The building, obviously, we didn't want it to kind of overtake the significance of the historic building, but we wanted to kind of seamlessly blend in. And so obviously it's trying to relate to that very bricky historic building. So a lot of heavy use of brick and stone. We tried to provide some relief in the facade, so there's some visual interest to the site. made sure there's still some pedestrian entrances off of 9th Street since it's such a heavily traveled thoroughfare. There's also a private courtyard that's going to be decoratively gated on the interior of the site. That'll just be access for the residents and staff. So by and large, we think this is a great kind of reimagining of this project and a continued repurposing of a beloved old historic building in the middle of the city. And so staff was pleased to present this to you. With that, we are recommending conditional approval, again, with the same standard conditions. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have one letter in support.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll wait and we'll take that here in a little bit. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak?
Yes, thank you. Kevin Riley, again with Riley, Teeter, and Schreier, representing the petitioner. We do have a few members of the project team and the petitioner's representatives available to answer questions you may have. Wanted to start by thanking the city and the staff for the efforts and time they put in so far working with us on this project. We're excited as well. Ryan's done a good job of describing the project, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. I did want to mention, though, that the new building that's going to be constructed is going to take the place of the southern parking lot, and we think this is a good repurposing of some underutilized ground at that location. Again, we're excited about the addition of this project to the city. We think it will be a great asset to the community, and we request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any questions or comments from the commission members? Hearing none, Ryan would go ahead. I'm sorry.
Question, Jason Domkowski here. This is going to be primarily senior living. Is that correct? Is that what I read?
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you much.
Do we have any, so we don't have any questions. Do we have any comments wishing to speak in favor or against this petition? And Ryan, while we're waiting on that, if you would go ahead and read that letter for me, please.
Okay. Yes, this is actually kind of a signed petition by the Historic Jefferson Neighborhood Association located at 917 Brown Street, Lafayette. It reads, to the Area Plan Commission, we, the undersigned, do hereby support the latest concept of the Jefferson Senior Center Phase 2 construction. And there are 13 signatories to that petition.
Thank you, Ryan.
And we presently have no social media comments.
No comments. Okay, Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Please signify your vote for the rezone or against it by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan.
Approve.
Larry Leverance.
Approve.
Roland Winger.
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds.
Approved.
Greg Jones.
Approve.
Jake Gray.
Approve.
Diana Looper.
Approve.
Vicky Pearl.
Approved.
Michelle Dennis.
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh.
Approve.
Perry Brown.
Approve.
Tracy Brown.
Approve.
Jason Domkowski.
Approve.
Lisa Dullum.
Approve.
Kathy Parker.
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Approve.
A unanimous vote for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Don't forget to complete your ballot online as well. On to Z2821.
I move to hear and approve Z2821, I Build Properties LLC, I3 to GB.
I second.
Mr. Burns?
The other Burns, right?
Yes, Mr. John Burns.
Okay. The petition here is to rezone this land from I3 to GB. We're in the north part of Lafayette here in the triangular shaped property bound by Duncan Road, North 9th Street, and Sagamore Parkway. Going back to some of the oldest zoning maps, this area has contained both general business and industrial zoning.
The most recent rezone in the area was for the property north of Sagamore Parkway. That was formerly industrial and has become GB. If we zoom in here a little bit. And this site is just over an acre, just to the south of the intersection of Duncan Road and Sagamore Parkway. Late last year, the house that appears on this aerial and a detached garage, which is hidden by the trees, were removed. So currently the site is vacant with the exception of some trees. The idea to rezone this property is for a contractor's office. A contractor's office is permitted in both the existing I3 zone as well as the proposed GB zone. The difference really is the lot coverage and the vegetative coverage are the main things. In the industrial zone, its current zoning, the lot coverage or roofed area of the lot is capped at 45%, and green space is at 20%. Petitioner's asking for general business zoning because it allows the lot to be covered slightly more, 60%, and leaving a little bit less green space, 10%. What's proposed currently is a 13,000 square foot building with the contractor being the tenant, and it sounds like there's probably room for an additional tenant. Go on here to the picture. This is what the petitioner's representative has provided. Staff can support this request because over time there's been a trend for a lot of our industrial users who were once located on North 9th Street to relocate to other part of our communities. That's freed up some of these other tracts to be developed with more service and retail commercial type of operations. So in support of that trend, staff supports this request.
Thank you, Mr. John Burns. Petitioner's representative.
Yes, good evening. Kevin Riley, Teeter and Schreier representing the petitioner, and the petitioner's representative is here as well. If you have any questions, he's available to answer. As John mentioned, we're requesting a rezone of the site from I3 to GB. We've reviewed the staff report and we agree with that report. The petitioner intends to occupy a large portion of the building that's going to be constructed on the site for his construction management business. And then there will also be some offices and attached storage for each of the units in that building. Our plans for development meet the standards of the ordinance. We think that GB is appropriate for this area and we request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commission members, any questions or comments on this? Okay. I think this is much improved from the building that was there. If I recall, it was a house that had a lot of stuff growing throughout it. So this is, I'm sure, welcomed by many. Any citizens' comments, questions, or not comments, either in favor or against this? And Ryan, if you'd let me know.
Yes, nothing presently, but I'll count down. And no comment on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Burns.
Thank you. Please signify your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan.
Approve.
Larry Leverins.
Approve.
Roland Winger.
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds.
Approved.
Greg Jones.
Approve.
Jake Gray.
Approve.
Diana Looper.
Approve.
Vicky Pearl.
Approved.
Michelle Dennis.
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh.
Approve.
Perry Brown.
Approve.
Tracy Brown.
Approve.
Jason Dubkowski.
Approve.
Lisa Dullum.
Approve.
Kathy Parker.
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Approve.
Unanimous vote in approval for the rezone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a friendly reminder to complete that ballot online as well. And we're on to Z2812.
I move to hear and approve Z2822, Tippecanoe Development 2 LLC, R1B to R2.
I second.
Mr. John Burns again.
Okay. All right, here we are on Lafayette South Side. Here on this aerial, centered is the intersection of Concord Road and Veterans Memorial Parkway. There's quite a commercial presence you'll see with all the general business zoning centered around the intersection and industrial zoning further east out towards US 52 and State Road 38. The subject property here shown outlined in red is currently zoned R1B and was rezoned about 3 years ago from R1 by the same petitioner. The R1B development that was proposed had never materialized. So now the R2 zoning district is now proposed. As you can see, the property here on the aerial, I'll zoom in a little bit. Oops. It is kind of sandwiched in, as I wrote in the report, between the Kirkpatrick ditch on the north side and Benjamin Crossing planned development on the south side. And a residential use is a no-brainer for this area. One of the goals of the comprehensive plan is to locate more dense housing near active commercial centers. And with the busy commercial node at Concord and Veterans Memorial Parkway, staff feels that the R2 proposed still meets the plans for the goals and supports this rezone.
Thank you very much. Petitioner's representative.
Yes, good evening, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier representing the petitioner. We've read the staff report. We agree with the comments in the report. Wanted to mention that the plan for this site is a one lot, one owner duplex subdivision. It would be a market rate development. It's similar to the development near the hospital off of McCarty Lane, which is currently fully occupied. We think this is an appropriate zoning for this site, and we request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any questions from the commission members? Do we have any comments, citizens' comments, whether in favor or against?
I will count down on social media, nothing present, but we do have one letter in opposition.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Stack. I live in the Benjamin Crossing subdivision. Unfortunately, a lot of there's several of us that in the Benjamin Crossing subdivision that believe that this land should be single-family houses, not duplexes. Unfortunately, there's an HOA meeting going on right now to where a lot of folks are there and weren't able to go ahead and make it to this. Poor scheduling based on when this came up versus the HOA meeting that was scheduled 4 months back. So we also believe that the single-family homes in this lot aligns well with both Benjamin Crossing as well as Stone Crossing right next to it. There's some of us that believe that this is a progressive movement of rezoning by the petitioner from several years ago when they made the first step and now trying to make a second step that had this been one large step at various points, it would have been rejected, and that they're trying to eke their way in by making this in a series of steps. Additionally, there's concerns about the traffic at various points of time throughout in the day. They're trying to get out of Benjamin Crossing. The amount of traffic that comes from the Walmart direction is quite heavy to where you can't actually pull out to the southbound direction. You have to go northbound because the traffic's so heavy. With the stoplight that's up there, you kind of have to wait for a gap. That although this is prime land for housing and it deserves to be single-family housing there, the additional population density, the traffic concern just escalates even higher. I mean, your report even shows that you're over 11,000 cars on that road per day, so it's heavily trafficked. And we just believe that, and we're also concerned about our home values, that with going to single-family homes, increasing the property values versus duplexes might decrease the property value.
Thank you, Mr. Stack. Just for the record, can we get your address, please?
My current address is 2639 Priest Drive. Recently moved, so you might have my other address in Benjamin Crossing as well.
Okay, that one's fine. Thank you. We just need an address for the record. Thank you very much, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this? And do we have any other comments, Ryan, social media otherwise?
Nothing on social media. I do have this letter to read in opposition when you're ready.
Let's go ahead and hear that, and then we'll give petitioner a moment for their rebuttal if they would like.
Okay. This is from Cody and Jessica Woods of 2760 Speedwell Lane, Lafayette. It reads, I am writing to express my strong opposition to the proposed rezoning of the area behind Benjamin Crossing, more specifically the area behind Speedwell Lane, property that is involved in this request if the location of South 250 East Lafayette. While the local community may be unable to prevent development, that in itself will be detrimental to the area. Most residents in Benjamin Crossing neighborhoods are completely opposed to the addition of duplex housing that will create even more problems with schools that are close to being at capacity, destroy local wildlife habitat, and potentially lower the property values of the existing community. Schools in the area are close to being at capacity, and the council should not approve duplex-like dwellings that create or exacerbates a situation that will cause overcrowding to fail for this proposal and or other approved plans. Wildlife has been observed in this area, and any development will destroy their habitat. Any planned development of the property should consider the continuing impact to local wildlife habitat. Property values are likely to go down in the area if duplexes are built. Duplex-like dwellings are inconsistent with the neighborhoods developed in the area. I urge you to disapprove the proposed rezoning, and from recent discussions with my neighbors, I know my opinions are shared by many who have not managed to attend meetings or write letters and emails. Thank you for your continued service and support of our communities. That's it.
Thank
and there
you,
still
Ryan.
is no comment on social media.
Very well then, Mr. Riley, your rebuttal, should you choose?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of points. First of all, there were a couple of mentions of home values. There's no evidence of any kind of an appraisal or market value opinion that home values are going to be impacted. So there's no evidence of that. No evidence that this is going to cause any problems with wildlife habitats or any kind of overcrowding in schools. In terms of the traffic, the staff report is pretty clear that the city with the county highway will determine access at appropriate point for access. And then in terms of whether it should be duplex housing or single family housing, I think the staff report is pretty clear that when it's this close to commercial development, that a more dense housing development is appropriate. So we think, again, request your approval, but don't think that the points in opposition raised are accurate or convincing.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any other questions, comments from the commission members?
This question, Roland Winger, is there an estimated number of units that the standard R3 zoning could support on this property?
I do not know the answer to that.
I was just curious in light of, I think, just looking at Benjamin Crossing, there's probably well over 300 units in the front part, since they do use the planned development lower lot line in there. So since this is standard R3 without any exceptions, I was just curious. Thank you.
Clarification, Roland, this is R2.
R2, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Okay, with that, hearing no other questions or, oh, I'm sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is market rate. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no other comments or questions from the commission members, Mr. Eric Burns, if you would, please.
Please signify your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan.
Approve.
Larry Leverins.
Approve.
Roland Winger.
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds.
Approve.
Greg Jones.
Approve.
Jake Gray.
Approve.
Diana Looper,
Approved.
Vicky Pearl,
Approved.
Michelle Dennis,
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh,
Approve.
Perry Brown,
Approve.
Tracy Brown,
Approve.
Jason Domkowski,
Approve.
Lisa Dullum,
Approve.
Kathy Parker,
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Deny.
The approval for the rezone passes.
Thank you. Reminder here, don't forget to complete your ballot online, and we'll go to Z28.
We could,
oh,
1 second, Mr. President, if we could pause. For the members, we had discussed earlier this afternoon that we might save some time and still be very efficient and correct in our tallying by taking a time now as opposed to after every single oral vote to make sure that we're caught up. And so Don Lamb, the man with 3 hands at least, I believe is looking at the ballots. And Don, do you have any need to make any changes to the written ballots to make them conform with the oral ballot?
I am proud and excited to say they're all filled out.
That is wonderful. And we'll do that again at the end of the meeting. And so, Mr. President, if you'd like to proceed to Z2823, you're certainly free to do so. Thank you very much.
thank you. Z2823.
I move to hear and approve Z2823, Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission, FP R3, I3, R2, R1, A, NB, and GB to FP, GB, R1, NB, A, and R3.
I second.
Say that 3 times real fast. Larry, it's up to you.
Thank you. Yes, we're requesting this rezone as a result of a J.N. Kirkpatrick ditch, which is a ditch that runs from the Elliott ditch on the west side of southern Lafayette to all the way out to the GE plant. It is existing and has developed over the years as the southern part of Lafayette has been developed. It started out as a field tile, and it's been opened up into a ditch. And over time, as developments occurred, DNR has come up with a study that's make this information accessible to homeowners and developers. And they've published it in the fall of last year, and we're following course and adopting it and incorporating it into our zoning maps. And now, as we look here at the zoning maps here, we have this in 2 cases, and that is because a portion of this ditch is in the city of Lafayette and a portion is in the county, unincorporated county. So there will be 2 cases here. And then we'll just take a quick look here at some of the changes. If we go to the current slide here, which is the Lafayette portion of the western boundary, there on the north side, there north of Veterans Memorial and Poland Hill, you can see that there is a little bit of change, but nothing noticeable. And then we'll skip the part that goes in the county. We'll look at that here in a little bit. There just west of 9th Street along the Kirkpatrick, there is currently no floodplain shown. But if you look to the south, which is showing a new floodplain there, these lines are based off of LIDAR data that was flown over the county in 2013. And the DNR ran a study, engineering study, and that's where these lines are coming from. So if we move east of 9th Street between 9th and 18th, there was an existing floodplain there that was put in place when those subdivisions were put in. We're getting a more defined line. And the most important thing to notice here is that none of the homes in this area or commercial buildings are being put in there are 1 or 2 homes that were slightly in that are already taking out on the south side of the ditch. Now there might be some sheds or something in the back of the people's houses that could be in, but they were already in the first place. Then as we go further to 18th, between 18th and Concord, you'll see we have the southern residential side. There was a floodplain there. We're getting a better defining area where that floodplain lies in relationship to what's currently there. To the north side, we have not had any development. It's sat empty, the NB piece. But most of the flooding in this, or the floodplain in this area, is along the ditch portion of the properties. A little bit further east as the subdivision continues, the residential subdivision, we are seeing some soil that was bad soil for development that's has not been developed over the years, that's becoming floodplain on the south side. On the north side, we are seeing the multifamily subdivision, the Foxfire subdivision. There's quite a bit of land that's being incorporated into the floodplain, including the drainage pond. There is a little bit of question about that, but this is based off the study. We can't really dispute the study at this point. There is some fringe, so if the developer needed to come in and develop that, we could possibly move some of that around to allow for development, as long as the floodplain is considered in the compensatory storage is achieved in that process. And then as you go further to the east, the GB portion that is currently a storage facility, there were some buildings that were in the floodplain originally, but with this new study, they are being taken out. And then if we go down to the next slide, which will be the last piece of the city of Lafayette, which is incorporated the industrial area to the east side of the town, you'll see a small portion of floodplain in that industrial area. And this is just out there, just west of the GE plant. And pretty much all the floodplain in this area is just inside of that Kirkpatrick ditch. Now, the next slide we're going to look at really fast, which is the Tippecanoe County portion request. Again, we'll have a small piece on the corner between Veterans Memorial and 9th Street that is currently not in the city limits. It's currently, if we can flip down to the next slide, please. Up one. We'll see a small portion there on the very western end of the Kirkpatrick where there is no floodplain. This is as part of Purdy's sod farms. And if you've ever driven past there, you've seen a Purdy defined ditch. All the floodplain that's being established is within that ditched area. And then if we move to the next slide, we're going to go out to the area behind the Walmart on the south side, that residential portion south.
Larry, we can't hear you.
Larry, your mic is shut off. Larry?
They may be having technical problems up there. Facebook just dropped out, but it's back on again.
Oh.
Probably the weather. I think it's 55 and sunny. Hey, Larry, I don't know if you can hear us now, but we lost you about the last minute and a half. If you could do some jumping jacks.
This is Maureen. We're just having a lot of technical difficulties in the Tippy room. We just lost the stream as well out of nowhere, so we're trying to get it all back up here.
Why don't we take a couple-minute break and Mr. Winger will sing to us.
Have a sing along.
We'll take a minute or two break to allow them to figure that out.
Hey, just a point of clarification, Jackson. Since he's here, since he was talking about these together, did we need to amend the initial motion to hear them together?
we've got two separate votes. Good question, Mr. Burns. Are we going to be able to vote on these together? Do we need to vote on them separately? How would you like to proceed?
I would recommend that you vote on them separately. He combined them together, which is great and fine, but I think since they're different petitions, we should vote separately, please.
And probably because one's going to the city and one's going to the county. Good thought.
Correct.
Thank you.
Good
Yeah, we have
point.
two separate set of ballots as well, so.
Yes, good point.
Tom, you're there on site, correct?
I am.
We're going to give him a minute or two. If
Yeah, he's in the process of changing to his personal computer, so if you can just give him a couple seconds, he will be back online.
Perfect, thanks. Mr. Hiddle, how are we doing so far?
I think we're doing fine. Maureen, I was going to say everything's working fine down here in the basement. So if need be, Larry can come down here and finish up.
If we have any questions, I'm at my own computer now.
There we go.
Okay, I think overall, I understand what's going on. Do we have any questions on the commission members? And I would normally ask as well if the petitioner wants to do it, but I believe the petitioner is Larry, so unless you have anything to add, Larry. Do we have any public comment on this?
Presently none. I'll give them another 30 seconds here.
Thank you. And reminder, while we're waiting on that, we've got two ballots. We'll vote on them separately, Z2823 and Z2824. And remember, we will need to complete those online. Yes.
Tyler Oaks, Ball Eggleston, if all right, I have a letter to read into the record.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Oaks.
Yep. For the record, Tyler Oaks, Ball Eggleston. I'm representing, Firefox at Valley Lakes LLC, and they are the owner of the subdivision that Larry talked about. That's in that R3 zone. If we go back a couple slides, the R3 where there's a significant amount of floodplain change. So just have a letter to read into the record. So due to the loss of use of this floodplain will cause for my client, we request the Area Plan Commission deny the floodplain rezone for the Foxfire at Valley Lake subdivision. In August of 2017, Foxfire at Valley Lake subdivision phase 2 was heard in front of this Area Plan Commission. The subdivision received conditional approval for phase 2 of the development, which would add approximately 11 apartment buildings to the southern half of the newly rezoned R3 district located just south of Veterans Memorial Parkway. On September 7, 2018, my client received an isolated wetland individual permit and approval from the Indiana Department of Environmental Management regarding phase 2. My client has spent nearly $500,000 on preparation and development for the phase 2 of Foxfire at Valley Lake subdivision. The expansion of the floodplain zone will impose significant burdens on my client to develop the land. If placed in the floodplain district, the land becomes almost useless. This is an inverse condemnation of my client's property. My client has taken all the steps necessary to receive approval from this commission, as well as the legislative body necessary to move forward with the development. My client has acted in good faith throughout the entire process. This introduction of a blatant restriction prohibiting my client's intended use of its property is a taking by a governmental agency under the Indiana and the United States constitutions, and my client should be compensated accordingly if approved. We respectfully request the floodplain rezone be denied by the Area Plan Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oaks. I have a question on this, Mr. Burns. So this has been deemed to be floodplain by the Indiana Department of Natural Resource.
Correct.
Are we able to overrule if you will, the Department of Natural Resource and not declare it to be floodplain?
No, it's not a subjective finding. To the extent that science can do anything, it has made an objective finding by DNR that this is floodplain. So whether you do anything with it or not, it's floodplain. And now the question is whether or not you want to appropriately designate it as you have learned from the authorities who are in charge of measuring and delineating floodplain. you have a recommending power here to do that or not as you choose. And then it would go to the county commissioners or the city council for final determination.
And for clarification on this, so if, let's assume that we pass this and it becomes designated as floodplain and the petitioner goes through with Indiana Department of Natural Resource, they get it designated as it is not floodplain, then that petitioner would need to come back to us for a rezone. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Well, may I interject? This is Don Lamb.
Please.
I reviewed the subdivision application back in 2017, and of course back then, as the map that has been prepared shows that there wasn't any, the floodplain has increased. Obviously, it's based on physical data that we have now that we didn't have back then. Our zoning ordinance does permit fill in the floodplain, and it's a matter of simply certifying the area that they want to build in out of the floodplain. So we have a process for making changes that in this case would not require them to go back before the plan commission or the city council to take the land that's being shown as floodplain out by fill.
Don, even if we designate it as floodplain?
Correct. I mean, this has been the case for many years in our subdivision, in our zoning ordinance. We have a process for, and Larry can back me up, I hope, that allows a developer or landowner to actually change the land fill. I mean, it has to be done properly, compacted, and so on and so forth. But I haven't seen any construction plans. I don't know if they've submitted anything to the city yet, but that was, the Permanently plat was approved in 2017, so it's been 4 years. They've got till 2027. They've got a 10-year time period for their primary approval, but nothing's been submitted. I just checked the database to see for continuing on this development. So there is a process for them to take it out of the floodplain. So there isn't any, in my opinion, I guess, real damage. We're just showing what physically the land looks like here based on the LiDAR.
Don,
Thank you very much.
My client and I don't disagree with your comments. We just want to make sure we're preserving all potential legal remedies in the record going forward. But we understand that there is a fill process, and that's certainly an avenue that he plans on pursuing as long as it's economically feasible going forward.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Lamb and Mr. Oakes. Any questions from the commission members?
Well, and I just want to clarify, and Larry, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're not designating this area as floodplain. The DNR already did that. All we're doing is zoning it as they designated it. And what the whole purpose of this complicated rezone is to give some relief to property owners who want to do projects in along their residential property or all along this whole area, who can't because they can't get permits because it's zoned as floodplain, even though the DNR has now determined that it's not in floodplain. Did I say that correctly, Larry?
Correct. So DNR has a study, and truthfully, if we don't, for example, if we don't accept this as rezone and the petitioner comes in and builds, they will still have to alleviate that floodplain through filling or maneuvering the soil. Just because we don't have it zoning, DNR is telling us it's floodplain because we're a member of the National Flood Insurance Program. We can't allow new structures in the floodplain. So we're doing this so we can have a similar line on the whole ditch. There is some difference that we don't make in the zoning between a floodway and a floodway fringe. at the local level, we can work and maneuver the floodway fringe around and move it so to allow buildings like this site to put buildings in and fill the floodway, which is normally handled with inside of the ditch itself or inside of the drainage easement. Is an area they wouldn't be able to build in regardless. Now, that being said, this development, the floodplain only prohibits these structures. So as part of this multifamily development, they might have to move a building here or there, but they could still have parking lots. They could still have facilities like playgrounds or dog parks or items similar to that still in the floodplain zoning.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Oakes, it seems clear that you and your client are aware of the remedies and the reason that we have to do what we're doing.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions?
No further comment on social media.
Okay, with that, Mr. Burns, if you would, on Z2823 first.
All right, please signify your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan,
Approve.
Larry Leverance,
Approve.
Roland Winger,
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds,
Approved.
Greg Jones,
Approved.
Jake Gray,
Approved.
Diana Looper,
Approve.
Vicky Pearl,
Approved.
Michelle Dennis,
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh,
Approve.
Perry Brown,
Approve.
Tracy Brown,
Approve.
Jason Domkowski,
Approve.
Lisa Dahlem,
Approve.
Kathy Parker,
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Approve.
Unanimous vote in favor of the rezone.
Thank you. Remember those ballots. And now Z2824.
I move to hear and approve Z2824, Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission, R3, R2, FP, R1B, R1A, R1, PDRS, and I3 to FP and R2.
I second.
And Larry, I believe you covered your report on the first one, if I'm accurate on that.
Yes.
Thank you. And let's see, so we can move on. Any questions on this one from the commission members? Tyler, you got anything you need to say on this one? Okay. Ryan, we'll give that 30 seconds.
All right. Stand by.
Mr. Ox, Eric Burns here is the letter, for the record, is the letter applicable to both petitions or just the
No,
one?
just the first one.
I assume so. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we have no further comment on social media.
Mr. Burns?
Please signify your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan,
Approve.
Larry Leverance,
Approve.
Roland Winger,
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds,
Approved.
Greg Jones,
Approved.
Jake Gray,
Approved.
Diana Looper,
Approve.
Vicky Pearl,
Approved.
Michelle Dennis,
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh,
Approve.
Perry Brown,
Approve.
Tracy Brown,
Approve.
Jason Domkowski,
Approve.
Lisa Dahlem,
Approve.
Kathy Parker,
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Approve.
unanimous approval for the rezone.
Thank you. On to Z2825, Hardebeck Development.
All right, I move to hear and approve Z2825 Hardebeck Development LLC, Gracewood Rural Estate 2, A to RE.
A second.
Mr. Lamb?
Okay. We're located the northern reaches of Tippecanoe County, on the north side of County Road 900 North, just west of State Road 43. You can see on the zoning map that there's a phase one of this actual the Gracewoods real estate subdivision was rezoned RE a few years ago. This is phase two. It actually does not adjoin or abut 900 North, but the access is by a private road that's was built with phase one. Everything around is zoned A. The site is entirely wooded. And as you can see on this area, a little clearer. The parcel layer of our map here shows the first 12 lots, and that's by design in the real estate ordinance that we allow a developer to only do 12 lots at a time. This phase two will be also 12 lots. 900 North is classified as a local road. The right-of-way was dedicated for the first phase plat. All the lots will be served by individual wells and septic systems. We actually already had a review and approval by the health department for this next set of 12 lots, as well as when the developer put together the construction plans for the real estate subdivision phase one, they designed and got approval by the drainage board as well for phase two, looking forward, in other words. So we actually won't have that much in terms of construction plan approval when the subdivision is actually submitted. Of course, we're right now at the rezone stage. So with that, this particular proposal does meet all of our standard requirements for a real estate subdivision rezone. In terms of the being totally wooded, undeveloped, and more than half a mile away from sanitary sewer, just like the first phase and so forth. So staff recommends approval of this RE rezone.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak on this?
Tyler Oaks, Ball Eggleston on behalf of Hardebeck Development LLC. Tony Hardebeck is here as well. We'd be happy to answer any questions. We'd like to adopt the staff report. The only thing I'll add is all the infrastructure was completed during phase one. So this has been ready to go for quite some time, kind of almost a formality at this point. The lots are going to be really, really nice, and I know Tony's really excited about it. So we would respectfully request approval, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Oaks. Any questions from the commission members? Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this? And Ryan, we'll wait for your signal.
Okay, stand by.
Just real quick while we're waiting. Tony, are these going to be about 3-acre lots each?
They vary. Some of the lots that are a little tighter on the creek are like 1.4. I think the average in phase two is over 2. So they vary from like lot 24, I think is close to 4 acres. The ones there in the middle that are a little tighter are like 1.8. So they vary a little bit.
Very nice.
The average is over 2. They're beautiful, beautiful lots.
Very cool. Thanks.
And we have no further comment.
All right. With that, we will go to any other questions before we do this from the commission members. Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Please signify your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan.
Approve.
Larry Leverance.
Approve.
Roland Winger.
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds.
Approved.
Greg Jones,
Approved.
Jake Gray,
Approve.
Diana Looper,
Approve.
Vicky Pearl,
Approved.
Michelle Dennis,
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh,
Approve.
Perry Brown,
Approve.
Tracy Brown,
Approved.
Jason Dumpkowski,
Approve.
Lisa Dullum,
Approve.
Kathy Parker,
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass,
Approve.
unanimous vote in favor of the rezone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. On to Z2826.
All right, I move to hear and approve Z2826, Purdue Delta Tau Delta Association Incorporated, CBW to R3U.
I second.
Mr. O'Gara.
Okay. Well, we're in the New Chauncey neighborhood in West Lafayette, and the rezone that we're hearing tonight is basically rooted in what came out of the New Chauncey neighborhood plan, which was adopted back in 2013. That was a multi-year process, working with the neighborhood residents and other stakeholders to try to sort out land use issues in the neighborhood, and establishing areas for future growth, and then limiting the rest of the neighborhood to a much lower density residential environment. So within that mix, of course, were obvious uses like fraternities and so forth, of which I believe there's still just 4 in the neighborhood. This one being obviously one of the more prominent ones given its location. After the plan's approval and adoption by City Council, there was a neighborhood-wide rezone initiative to try to bring the neighborhood closer into conformity with the future land use prescriptions, as well as a possibility of exploring form-based overlay one day to allow development to happen a little more prescriptively. And so the neighborhood rezone did take place, and that's what did change this property to its current state. So the land use plan is very clear, and the position of the plan is that given this incredibly high profile corner, that a future land use higher priority for the neighborhood and for the city is to make use of that highly visible corner for sort of a mixed use environment. The CBW zone produces that mix of uses. It requires a non-residential ground floor. Residential can be above on the upper stories, and so forth. And so this particular property, despite it being a fraternity use for a long time, along with others up the street, the girls cooperative next to Fuse, as well as the even older fraternity over on the east side of the neighborhood, and then a slightly newer one that's kind of in the central neighborhood just north of Fowler. All of those sites, those uses were acknowledged, but we were sort of looking for a different development future moving ahead. So the plan did rezone, the neighborhood rezone did take place, and this area was switched to that mixed use zoning district. So the plan's prescriptions are very clear and very specific, and so staff continues to defend them, still sees value to them. I would sort of submit for the record, obviously I'll take questions from commissioners in terms of their opinion and what their recommendation might be, but ultimately to City Council, if City Council is interested in changing some of the land use prescriptions in the plan for whatever reason, we would strongly recommend that the land use plan be amended, and we could go through an amendment process that for the plan from 2013 And we would not be starting over all over again, but we'd making some slight adjustments. So this is sort of a policy directive that informed this rezone, and that's why this property is in the zoning district it's in. And staff sees no reason to change those prescriptions given the long and very thoughtful process that went into the construction of the neighborhood plan for New Chauncey, which was the city's very first. And subsequent plans, the most recent one, the downtown plan, all kind of stemmed from a lot of the processes that we developed in the New Chauncey neighborhood for its plan. So staff is recommending denial for this rezone. I understand that their reasons to do it are to sort of make some modest expansions to this historic building. The plan certainly acknowledges it, the historic significance of the structure, being probably one of the lone examples of the Tudor style architecture for those that are knowledgeable of what that is. But the plan is sort of looking beyond the current use and looking towards the future, and that's what was rooted in that rezone effort. So, like I said, staff will recommend a denial and continue to recommend denial of anything that might go against future land use plan prescriptions in any of our neighborhood plans. And then, of course, again, plans can be amended and policies can be changed as the years go on. Policy directives may shift and preferences may change, and that's why we have the amendment process. And so I always submit that to our legislative bodies to they're more than welcome to initiate an amendment process if they so choose. So I'll stop there and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for those last comments as well. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak on this.
Yes, Mr. Bogan, Chris Shellman, Gutwein Law here on behalf of Delta Todd Delta. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind, would you permit me to share a couple images?
Yeah, whoever's in control of the slideshow, go ahead and let Chris have control so he can. Do you have like a little slide presentation, Chris?
Yeah, just a couple pictures and some things.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Stand by. I think Larry's gonna make the change for you.
Hammond here with me today from Delta Todd Delta as well. Some history on the site, but the property was built in the 1920s.
I think you have control now.
There we go. Thank you. So the property was built in the 1920s, and as Ryan mentioned, is noted as an outstanding representation of historic Tudor architecture, in addition to having other educational significance. It was expanded in the 1970s with what they call the new wing, and has existed on that site. As you can see from the location here, it's built back on the property with the setback, and Northwestern and Fowler being, large roads, there's going to be significant setbacks from the road, irrespective of what any future development would ever occur. And quite frankly, what we're talking about is a very small, isolated property and a very small, isolated problem. The area land use has, right next to it, has predominantly the R3U and R3W zones. And you have ag across the street from the old Purdue area, and then the CBW, which is this specific property. But what the problem here is that the facility is not a permitted use. So the fraternity use, the use that's been here since the 1920s, and fraternity hopes for the next 100 years and more. There's only 5 zones, technically 5 zones within the zoning ordinance that permit the fraternity use. That's ag, R3, R3U, R3W, and R4W. So the intent here was to select the R3 zone, which is designed to preserve and protect older developed parts of the community, which we think New Chauncey is. The goal isn't to do anything different but it's to preserve this use and allow it to continue going forward. Unfortunately, if fraternities were permitted in the CB zone, CBW zone, we wouldn't be here tonight. Admittedly, the fraternity, sort of dropped the ball in participation back in 13. They weren't paying attention and didn't realize what the ramifications were.
Oh boy.
This came to a head more recently during the pandemic when they needed to expand their front porch to allow for some outdoor dining. Ultimately, no non-conforming use can be expanded in any way, even if it's minor. So that created some difficulties, which brought the issue to a head. And you can note in the new Chauncey plan here that's shown here, the Delta Todd Delta House is in fact the only outstanding example of the Tudor revival, only outstanding property with architectural and historic significance in the entire new Chauncey neighborhood. You can see here on the map, which lists 59 notable and outstanding properties. Both of the outstanding are for the architecture, which is, as Ryan mentioned, is the Tudor style, as well as some educational historical significance. So our goal, as is the new Chauncey's plan, is to preserve this outstanding architectural and educational gem that's in excellent condition. And we want to be able to maintain it and be able to update it and serve the needs while preserving that character in the future. Currently, that impact creates several complications. One, if there was any type of loss, either external or internal, I wouldn't be able to rebuild if it was over 50% of the replacement cost. That creates a practical issue for the concerns of the fraternity, as well as some insurance complications. But also, and more likely, it would be any type of expansion. A non-conforming use, unlike a non-conforming structure, can't be expanded in any way. And that would be in volume, or that would be in footprint. So technically an awning, a porch that gets extended, maybe even technically a bigger light that sticks out. It really creates, a long-term problem. While, we acknowledge that the neighborhood New Chauncey plan, is generally appropriate, we would just argue that this one specific block, created some problems. Long-term, if the fraternity were never to be there, which at this time they have no plans of not being there, maybe a larger, denser development would make sense, but likely that would occur through the plan development process, in our opinion, irrespective of the zone. We'd be happy to answer any specific questions, but our goal ultimately is to be a valuable member of the West Lafayette and Purdue University communities, be located at this facility, and preserve this structure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shellman. Do we have any questions from the commission members?
Jackson, this is Larry Leverins. This case really is I understand both sides of this. I understand what the fraternity is asking and understand the dilemma that this puts them in. At the same time, I want to be very defensive of the New Chauncey neighborhood plan as well. I'd really like to hear if Aaron or Chad are on the call tonight, if one of them from the city would comment. What from the city standpoint, what are the thoughts there?
Aaron or Chad, would you be on the call by chance?
Chad Spitzhagel, Building Commissioner. Yeah, we agree. The city standpoint, we're not necessarily for or against it. I mean, for it, we would be mindful of the historic, preservation of a 100-year-old structure, and against it, just continuing the New Chauncey plan. So we appreciate area plans work in the staff report and maintaining our downtown plan. But we're open to your interpretation on this as well.
Thank you, Chad. This is Erin. I would echo those sentiments, and I think both parties have presented options of how this could be solved in the future if for some reason this isn't the appropriate path forward. But we certainly would defer to your expertise.
Thank you. Ryan, question, is there any way to make any of this allowable by special exception without rezoning?
I don't believe so, not in the CBW. I can check real quickly. Unless one of my colleagues on the call knows it by heart.
I don't, not currently. It would require an amendment.
Yeah, the fraternity, it is only available as a permitted use, not by special exception in any zone. And it's permitted in all of the R3 zones, R3, R3U, R3W, and R4W. And it's also permitted in the A zone, in the agriculture zone.
Okay.
So there would not be a path forward for them, short of a planned development, to reestablish this use except by one of those matter of right zones.
And arguably, from Mr. Shellman's comments earlier, if this area were to be redeveloped, most likely, I understand we cannot predict the future, but most likely this would fall under a planned development. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, I mean, if history continues, usually these more complicated mixed-use projects that are urban in character take the planned development path.
Okay, so in other words, it may even be more restrictive with the current or heading to an R3U zone than that under the planned development from a size standpoint.
Yes, certainly because of the setback impositions, by those by right zones.
Great, thank you, Ryan.
Mr. Chair, Ryan, Jason Domkowski here. If I could ask a question of Ryan.
Yeah.
An approval here for a rezone, then go to the West Lafayette City Council for their vote. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a
Mr.
question.
Ms. Parker, and then we'll take Mr. Winger.
Okay, so my question is, since this is a 100-year-old building, I'm wondering why it's not protected as a historic building.
Right. The New Chauncey Local Historic District, which is West Lafayette's only local ordinance historic district, did not include this property in its mix. I don't know if they were approached and were not interested in joining, or they were not even approached. There was the city staff at that time. I don't know if we have any current members of city staff that were part of that process. City attorney might have been there at that time, Mr. Burns, but and if he is and has some history here, he might be able to fill us in if he wants to don that hat. But the boundary for the local historic district largely was coterminous with the kind of the national boundary for the kind of town, Chauncey Town National Historic District, which has no teeth to it in terms of regulating development of property. A local historic district passed by city council does, and that's where you have if you want to demolish a property, it has to go to that board for review. If you decide to build new within a local historic district, you have to get a certificate of appropriateness from that same body, and it's all before a public hearing process, etc. And so this property, I believe, despite its historic significance as a single standalone structure, was never part of either the national district, which has no regulatory teeth, and then therefore, when the local historic district was developed, they largely followed that similar boundary, and so it was left out as well. Now, with local historic districts, any property owner can appeal to the locality and say, we want in, we want to be restricted. And because we love our building, we want to preserve it. This has been done many times in Lafayette. The Centennial Neighborhood Historic District is a patchwork quilt of properties, and all of them were volunteered. You know, the property owners wanted to put these restrictions on their buildings, so when they're long gone, there are still protections for these old structures. So I was not part of the. I was very much on the periphery of the local historic district effort because I'm not a member of city staff. It was largely a city ordinance effort. Well, it was exclusively a city ordinance effort. That local historic district did come after the adoption of the neighborhood plan, like within a year or two of its adoption. So it's my guess, unless someone on this call that has some history on that local historic district, my guess is that they were not included because they didn't follow that national boundary, and they also elected to not have themselves brought into the local historic district, or they were perhaps ignorant that they could have made that appeal. And now that said, there's nothing stopping them from making that appeal now. You know, it would have to go through the city's process. There may be some connection with, you know, the national district and its relationship to the adopted local historic district. This property was left out of that. So city staff does administer the local historic district within the city, and so if any of them can speak to that process, if there's questions about it, I'll turn it over to them.
I would add, though, that currently, being the non-conforming use, the zoning ordinance is set up to discourage and eventually make the structure there, which is, well, it's a single purpose structure, make that structure go away to potentially make way for the, you know, hypothetical future 5-story building. So
yeah, Chris is right there. The throughout the plan in its land use block by block narrative, which is towards the end of the land use plan, specific historic properties were called out by address for preservation, reuse, repurposing. And the block that this building is on did not have that, because it was the plan's intention that this use might go away one day. And if it did, we wanted to lay out what a development future might be for it. And so it would fall into that non-conforming category. And as with all non-conforming situations, essentially the locality waits for that use to eventually leave on its own and then be replaced by a conforming situation.
Okay, thank you. Roland?
Mr. Chair, Roland Winger. So I appreciate the difficult challenge that this question asked. I served as president of this body as we finalized the neighborhood plan back in what I think was 2013, according to the report, and know the amount of time that the staff and the city and the neighbors and all representatives spent on this. I'm just taking myself back to those days when we were deciding what color of block should that then be zoned, you know, dark green, light green, yellow, and all of those things. And if you look at the map, you know, in the packet or in any of the representations in that corner, there's no doubt that that's a prime corner for a mixed use development, high density with the retail, as has been described in then the subsequent CBW zoning. But the spirit, and so what I'm considering right now is my part or our part in this, and ultimately I'm going to vote to move this forward, to approve this, to send it on to the city council, because this is an in-betweener. there was nothing that said, even if highest and best use on this corner is a mixed use and, high density, that you would want to ignore the historic value of a long-standing owner who simply wants to make improvement to the property. So I then think it goes beyond a zoning question forced by what was an ideal that we wrap zoning around. But if we'd go back 8 years to 2013 and we're considering that map, we're down to the last discussions, and on that map, does that block go, I don't remember what the colors were at the time, but light green or dark green? If you say, that's just that corner. And if somebody had said, or if the fraternity had been at the table and said, we really want to be here for a long time, there probably would have been another discussion. So no, I'm not thinking to reward complacency. Maybe they just didn't know about it. It doesn't matter. To me, that could have easily gone that way, again, considering the historic nature of the building. Not that long-term higher density use would not be very well there, but that to me is the strategic decision that the city council will need to wrestle with and decide on, because it involves so many other factors. Here it's basically telling a tenant, you need to change what you're doing. And I don't feel like that was the intent of the neighborhood plan.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. Any other questions, comments? Do we have anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition of this petition?
Chris, would this be an appropriate time?
Sure, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Hammond. I'm one of the House Corporation board members of the entity that owns the Delta Tau Delta house, owned by our alumni. As Chris mentioned, we have owned this land, purchased this land in 1928 for the intention of building a new fraternity house for organization. Our chapter has actually been in continuous existence at Purdue for 114 years and 1 day, yesterday being our anniversary. We have no intention of going anywhere. We are the 7th largest chapter of Delta Tau Delta fraternity in the country. We have initiated over 3,000 Purdue students into our fraternity. I think over 2,000 still living members of our fraternity. We did a $2.5 million renovation to the facility about a little over 10 years ago in 2008, with the intention to be here for the long haul. We have been a good steward of the neighborhood. When we had to repave our parking lot a few years ago, there was a vacated section of Pearl Street to the north in between us and some rental houses that was just gravel, a gravel mess. And we went ahead and paid to repave that part of the area, even though it's not even our land. I think some of the tenants from the nearby rental units park on the other side. But I can assure this board and the city that we are not going anywhere. It is our intention to be here for at least another 100 years. Our foundation has the resources to, let's say, if these men made some poor choices and we needed to not be a chapter here for a few years, that we would be able to financially rent this facility out to another chapter for a few years, weather the storm, and recolonize and come back. Our international fraternity, for which I used to be an employee after graduating from Purdue, their foundation has a very strong interest in preserving historic structures like this for future chapters. In campuses across the country where a chapter has closed for one reason or another, the national organization has stepped in if there were financial difficulties to purchase the property to preserve it for fraternity use. There is no intention, I would say no chance of this being anything other than a fraternity for at least the next 100 years. We have the prominent corner that has been described, this high profile corner, is one of the very reasons why we're not going anywhere. There's no other land where we could ever have a building that would provide our members this proximity to the campus, which they are students. That is a great benefit to us. The reason why the land was purchased in the first place. We obviously built a Tudor style home. In the renovation, we maintained the original slate roof to keep that style going and have maintained it that way since. To be a good steward of the neighborhood and the university by maintaining that look and feel of our property. So I just want to assure this board that whatever notice may have come to our house, maybe the fraternity guys didn't know what it was or pass it on to the right person. We were made aware of this when we went to add a patio for the guys to eat outdoor during this pandemic. But we just want to correct this so we can continue to be in existence in the same location as it is our intention for the next 100 years.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond, and congrats on the anniversary. And can we get your address for the record, sir?
Sure, it's 3966 Rowlett, Rowlett Place, and that's in Carmel, Indiana.
Thank you. And being a former fraternity member, I would have no idea how those mailings would get lost. I know all of the students are paying close attention to the mail. With that, do we have any other comments, questions?
I just add, I live in New Chauncey, but I wasn't involved in the development of the neighborhood plan. But I agree with what others are saying in that it doesn't make sense in my mind to restrict these current property owners for something that could be potentially decades in the future in terms of development. I think it makes more sense to allow them to do what they need to do to update and maintain their property and then reevaluate the land should there come to be a need for a new property owner. It's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any other who wish to speak in favor or opposition of this? Ryan, any comments on social media?
No comments on social media.
Okay. With that, Mr. Burns, if you would, please.
Please signify your vote on the rezone by saying approve or deny. Jackson Bogan.
Approve.
Larry Leverins.
Approve.
Roland Winger.
Approve.
Jerry Reynolds.
Approved.
Greg Jones.
Approved.
Jake Gray.
Approved.
Diana Looper.
Approve.
Vicky Pearl.
Approve.
Michelle Dennis.
Approve.
Tom Murtaugh.
Approve.
Perry Brown. Perry Brown.
Approve.
Tracy Brown.
Approve.
Jason Domkowski.
Approve.
Lisa Dullum.
Approve.
Kathy Parker.
Approve.
Carla Snodgrass.
Approve.
Unanimous vote approval of the rezone.
Thank you.
Please remember to complete that ballot online as well. We are on to administrative, or do we want to do the vote count right now and check, Mr. Burns?
Yes, please. If we could find out whether or not the written ballots match the votes that you've taken during the meeting.
Right now, we just got it. Yes, we're complete.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Outstanding. I will be mailing out good job suckers to everyone. And we can now head to administrative matters.
Thank you, Mr. President. David Hiddle. We put this on the agenda simply because we've been receiving this question so many times from the public and from our regular petitioners and from plan commissioners. And it's just what is the is there a plan for returning to regular face-to-face meetings? If there is a plan, is it contingent on certain events happening? And so rather than just kind of guess and say that we haven't heard anything, we thought that we'd put it out there for some direction so that we know what at least the near future looks like. So we don't have anything else beyond that prepared. I do know that in the commissioner, we have two commissioners here, they can probably speak to this, but they've relaxed the mask mandate in terms of county policy so that masks are recommended but not required. I did talk to Kayla Hochstetler, from the administrator of the health department today, and she suggested that the meetings continue to take place as they are and then perhaps be reevaluated in the summer, which I might take to mean reconsidered in June perhaps, and didn't have much more to offer other than that. But if there is discussion to be had, it would be at your pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Hiddle. On this, obviously a sensitive topic, would it be possible, just before we have a discussion, would it be possible to have, for those that feel comfortable meeting in person, and would we be able to do both where people can remote in, should they so choose, and in person, or is that not a possibility technology-wise?
I believe that's a possibility. I personally would love to maintain the opportunity for people to remote in, for down the road for every meeting. I'm not sure if that can happen. I would defer to Larry and maybe Maureen as to whether or not technologically we're equipped to do that right away. They might know. Maybe it's a question for IT though. Larry, do you have a feeling on that?
I would say it'd be too early to determine that. Maybe we could get with Mitts and go over that and come up with a plan and report back next month.
Okay.
David, I did talk to Max in our IT department about that. And with the new system, we can, if a few folks wanted to remain virtual, then the folks who did want to actually come to the meeting, we can socially distance at the main podium and then put maybe 2 tables up front instead of just the 1 table that we had prior to COVID. And we have enough wireless mics that with the new system that we could account for that. And then folks who did not feel comfortable coming into the building could still call in virtually. We would probably need IT here for that first meeting to help with that, but I think it actually can be done.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think there's also, this is Eric, there's also some state legislative moves that are being made that will become very relevant very quickly. As you know, right now, because of the pandemic executive order from the governor, we have the ability to do what we're doing exactly as we are tonight. And because we have that ability right now, we would have the ability to do partially in person and partially virtual. We have an open field, a carte blanche that would enable us to do whatever we want. Now, that is going to end when legislation is signed and becomes effective. The legislation that has now passed both the House and Senate, State House, has essentially set up a virtual method that will be possible after the pandemic, after the emergency order of the governor expires. And it is anticipated that that will be signed by the governor and will become law, but it isn't signed by the governor and has not become law yet. What that essentially says is that units of government such as the APC and the other BZA and whatnot in the county zoning world will be able to have a meeting, but you have to have at least 50% of the people present in a room, physically present. The other folks can participate as we are now. And as long as those folks who are virtual can see and hear, just as we can now, and as long as they can be seen and be heard by those people who are members of the public who choose to show up into the physical room, then you're going to be able to do that virtually. The other thing that needs to happen is that the organization, the APC, would need to make its decision about what procedures it wants to follow. So the state government will say, if this passes, yes, you can do it. Now, you folks make rules that will allow you to do that within the parameters that have been drawn. The major parameter, as I said, is you got to have 50% of the body in the meeting. That means you'd have to have at least 9 members in the physical meeting room. And if you have physical meeting with more than half of the members, you have by definition a public meeting where any member of the public has the right to be there physically also. So we're going to have something signed, I'll bet you, in the next couple of weeks.
So we've got everybody's camera on. Show of hands here for those that would feel comfortable meeting in person.
I was not able to hear that if it's a question. Okay.
Okay, show of hands for those that would feel comfortable meeting in person.
Turn on
Looks
your
like
cameras, everybody.
Yeah, it looks like we have 10, 11, 12, several. Okay, so that would give us more than 50%, Mr. Burns. From a technology standpoint, I would like to recommend that we, at the very least, that we either try to do it this next month or the following month at the latest. So that would mean that our May meeting would be in person and virtual. Going forward, probably be that way for quite some time. Is our May meeting too early for that? Is that too large of a hurdle to tackle or to jump?
Well, I would suggest maybe we aim for that, but we do our May exec and ordinance meeting and as a test run for that.
Great call. Mr. Hiddle, you okay with that?
That works.
Why don't we, so our next exec and ordinance meeting is on the 5th of May. And so we will plan on doing those live if you're in town. I know some of us might still be goofing off in Florida. I don't know if that's the case or not, but we'll plan on doing that live for those that feel comfortable attending. We will try to have the links set up so that people can also remote in. So does that mean we will shoot for a live meeting or in-person meeting availability on our next area plan meeting is on the 19th, May 19th?
I think with the practice under our belt, we can.
Okay. Well, let's shoot for that. We can always go to this. This is the easy piece, right? Was not easy at the beginning. Kind of odd to say, easy now. But we will shoot for the practice of the ordinance and exec meeting. Assuming that all goes according to plan, we will go live meeting May 19th.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And we are into the approval of the May Executive Committee.
I move that the following requests for subdivision be placed on the May 5th, 2021 Area Plan Commission Executive Committee agenda at petitioner's request. Placement thereon being without reference to compliance or non-compliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance. S 4993 Edge Estates minor subdivision, minor sketch, and S 4994 Lifelong Fitness minor subdivision, minor sketch.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? That carries. Determination of variances.
I move that the following request for variance from the Unified Zoning Ordinance is not a request for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. BZA 2052 Fox Acquisitions LLC.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? That carries. Now, director's report.
Thank you, David Hiddle. There's not a lot of earth-shattering news here. Just a quick look at the highlights. Our March permit numbers were just a hair above our average for March, with the overwhelming majority being in unincorporated county area, handful in West Lafayette and one in Lafayette. Speaking of single-family permits, a couple permits for multifamily construction in Lafayette as well. Otherwise, it's the initiatives and operations we've had going on for a while. They're continuing. We did finish our UPWP, our Unified Planning Work Program, which is the county's or the MPO's statement of transportation initiatives. It was certified, or rather adopted, by the MPO in April and submitted to NDOT. Other initiatives and operations are just kind of moving forward. I'm trying to just hit highlights because we've been here for a while. Tom and I met with BAGEL, which is the acronym for the Builders Association of Greater Lafayette today, which was instructive. We shared not necessarily concerns, but thoughts about relationships between the county and our department and what they do in terms of building new housing. And I think it was a very good conversation. They said overwhelmingly that their big issue is a lack of available lots. There's the Green Street Housing Survey commissioned recently by the county said that we're going to need a significant increase in the amount of available housing for anticipated population increase. And that available housing is not easily able to be seen on the horizon. There's a lack of infrastructure with regards to sewer and availability to accommodate those new lots. And that's kind of, though, presuming that all these folks are going to be housed in single family development, which is another conversation. But it was a good meeting. We're going to continue to have dialogue with them. I think they have some things that they're interested in seeing us do, and we have some things that we're interested in seeing them do, and that will be a conversation to continue. And then finally, China Lynch, who's usually in the room there with you, gave birth to a sizable child on April 16th. Everybody's happy and healthy, and she'll be back just as soon as she can.
Well, congratulations to her from all of us. That's outstanding.
Very good.
And thank you for that report. Any questions from the commission members? We'll take a minute for citizens' comments and grievances.
All right, stand by.
Michelle, great job reading tonight. We can fire Gary now.
Thanks.
All right, nothing further on social media.
All right, with that, we'll take that motion.
All right, I move to adjourn.
So moved. Enjoy your evening all. Well done. Thank you. Great job, Mr. Hiddle.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Good evening.